That social media post behind me saying, "What about Comey?" was directed to Pam. Are you the Pam that the president was referring to?
I'm sure I was.
So it's very clear to me that when the president posts something like that he considers the DOJ to be his law firm and you his lawyer. And in fact, very shortly after the post to you, Comey gets indicted. Last year, President Trump's new border czar, now border czar, Tom Homan, was videotaped taking a bag with $50,000 in cash from undercover FBI agents.
This wasn't just a heated exchange. It was a test of whether the Justice Department answers to the law or to the president. Watch closely.
Said his predecessors did fully investigate. The second and third 1023 forms relate to the first in that they reference potential Biden family criminal conduct. Senator Johnson and I made these two public, and we simply want to know whether the government has investigated what it found, and if not, why not? Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Bondi, FISA Section 702 will expire in 6 months. In response to my questions for the record, at your confirmation hearing, you said you did not have experience with FISA, but if confirmed, you would consult with experts at DOJ. Now, you've had that opportunity. Do you support adding additional safeguards for searching Americans' communications in the 702 database?
Senator, Section 702 is a vital source of foreign intelligence and instrumental in keeping Americans safe. We also take individuals' rights of their individual rights of all Americans very seriously. And many statutory reforms to FISA have incorporate safeguards. They have to incorporate safeguards to protect our civil liberties. The Department of Justice looks forward to working with you to discuss anything regarding 702.
Appreciate
I believe
that.
my staff, and Senator, I also want to thank you for this hearing. Your staff met with my staff, and I greatly appreciate that.
Thank you. We're going to be working on 702, so I appreciate the openness to further amending 702. At your confirmation hearing, you assured me that it is the Department of Justice's decision to determine what cases will be prosecuted. Last month, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia was forced out. President Trump then posted the message behind me asking about prosecuting James Comey. You then appointed a new U.S. attorney who within days secured an indictment against James Comey. That social media post behind me saying, "What about Comey?" was directed to Pam. Are you the Pam that the president was referring to?
I'm sure I was.
So it's very clear to me that when the president posts something like that he considers the DOJ to be his law firm and you his lawyer. And in fact, very shortly after the post to you, Comey gets indicted. Last year, President Trump's new border czar, now border czar, Tom Homan, was videotaped taking a bag with $50,000 in cash from undercover FBI agents after suggesting he could help with government contracts. Sounds like a bribe. 2 weeks ago, DOJ officials reportedly shut down the bribery investigation into Mr. Homan. Ms. Bondi, did you approve closing the Homan investigation, bribery investigation?
Just get rid of that. Senator Hirono, as I stated earlier, the Department of Justice and the FBI conducted a thorough review, and they found no credible evidence of any wrongdoing. You were also on video outside the White House protesting with a group called CASA, where Antifa members were. Does that mean you're a member of Antifa?
You know, I simply asked the question as to whether or not you approve the shutting down of the investigation, Mr. Homan. I have to assume that you did because the FBI reports to you. But the American people would look at the situation where this person is taking a $50,000 in cash, no less, and you testified today that a thorough investigation was done. Now, I have to assume, I conclude, that since no wrongdoing was determined, that in answer to Senator Whitehouse's question, he kept the money. He kept the money, and I hope that he put that on his tax returns as income. Next question. Over 1,200 rioters were convicted of charges related to January 6th. President Trump has since pardoned nearly all of them. As if that weren't enough, last month there were reports that a lawyer for the January 6th rioters met with senior DOJ officials about setting up a compensation fund like the one that Congress set up after 9/11 to compensate these rioters. Ms. Bondi, is anyone at DOJ considering setting up a compensation fund for January 6th rioters? Yes or no?
Senator, I have had no meetings or discussions about a fund.
So would you support such a fund? Would you okay such a fund?
Senator, you can send me the information on the fund, and I'd be happy to look at it.
No, but do you think that's a good idea this is what I'm getting at. Because to actually set up a fund and to have people talking with your senior people at DOJ, political people, about creating a fund, and you won't let us know what you think about that, that's pretty unbelievable. On January 30th of this year, the Trump DOJ's antitrust division sued to block the merger of two tech companies. Then, well-connected lobbyists met with your political deputies who overruled the career staff and approved the merger. So there's a settlement on that. And separately, DOJ sued Ticketmaster last year for monopolizing concert tickets and forcing consumers to pay outrageous fees. Ticketmaster has hired the exact same lobbyists who met with senior DOJ political people regarding the merger of the two tech companies. So my question is, Ms. Bondi, have lobbyists met with your political deputies about the Ticketmaster case?
Senator Hirono, as I stated earlier, I am not going to discuss anything that is ongoing. Gail Slater runs the antitrust
I would
office,
say
and
that
Gail
that-
Slater, if I can finish, Gail Slater is doing an incredible job running my antitrust unit.
It's highly likely, Ms. Bondi, that the same lobbyists who met with your people basically got rid of the antitrust case.
Senator, I don't think a lot of people
I
like
would
that
say
you were out
they're probably
protesting with
meeting you
Antifa.
right now. Next question. You have fired dozens of career prosecutors because they worked on cases involving President Trump or January 6 rioters. For example, one career federal prosecutor who secured over 100 convictions in Florida. He also spent time in D.C. prosecuting January 6 cases. He received an outstanding review only 2 days before you signed a memo firing him. The memo cited no reason for his firing. Are you firing career prosecutors solely because they worked on cases like January 6th that the president doesn't like?
Senator Hirono, I am not going
Yes
to
or
talk
no?
about personnel matters with you.
Well, we all know that hundreds of career prosecutors have left the DOJ, and literally hundreds were told. And
Yeah,
you know,
Senator,
you've
are you
lost. The
familiar with the one
DOJ
that threw a
has
sandwich
lost-
at an ICE officer? Are you a Homeland Security officer?
is the
Are you familiar
reason.
with the one who went out on her lunch break and was
Ms. Bondi,
making obscene gestures?
Would you say that DOJ losing these career prosecutors and the thousands of hours of experience they have prosecuting criminals, that is not a reassuring situation?
Senator, many employees took the fork in the road and resigned. DOJ is hiring committed prosecutors who will actually come into the office and work and not work remotely
I
and
think we all
prosecute
know that-
violent criminals around the country and terrorists. And
When
I
you-
am very proud
when you
of the
fire-
work all of our prosecutors
I'm running out
are
of
doing.
time, so I think you should stop with your continuous interruptions, in my opinion. Mr. Chairman, I just want to close by saying that what was once the Department of Justice has become the Department of Revenge and Corruption. Rather than pursuing cases without fear or favor, this DOJ seeks to favor the president's friends and instill fear in his alleged enemies. If you're a friend of the president, this corrupt DOJ will bend over backwards to help you, just like it dropped the bribery investigation of Tom Homan, like it's considering paying money to January 6 rioters, and like it has put antitrust enforcement decisions in the hands of well-connected lobbyists. But if you're on the wrong side of this president, you will face the wrath of DOJ, no matter what the facts, law, or justice support. James Comey is indicted days after the president's social media directive. Experienced career prosecutors are fired just because they were assigned to work on January 6 cases. Blue states are sued to get highly sensitive private voter data, whereas red states are left alone. The double standard is clear, and the American people are waking up to the corruption and favoritism and the lawlessness at the DOJ. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
May I respond, Chairman?
Yes.
May I respond?
Yes, you may respond. Then Senator Kennedy.
Thank you. The double standard is crystal clear, Senator Hirono, crystal clear, because you didn't complain for 4 years when President Trump was being targeted by Jack Smith, by the last Justice Department. But the American people spoke loud and clear when they overwhelmingly elected him. The two-tier system of justice is over.
Senator Kennedy. Me? Yes.
What unfolded between Senator Mazie Hirono and Attorney General Pam Bondi was not just a tense back and forth. It was a rare moment where the architecture of politicized justice was laid bare in real time. On the surface, this hearing looked like another combative Judiciary committee exchange, but underneath, it was a fundamental question that defines democratic governance. Who controls the Department of Justice, the law or the president? Hirono's questioning was deliberate and methodical. She wasn't chasing a viral moment, she was building a record. And that matters, because hearings are not only about answers in the room, they're about what becomes part of the official history when institutions are later scrutinized. She starts with FISA Section 702, and that's not accidental. Section 702 is one of the most powerful surveillance authorities in the federal government. It allows intelligence agencies to collect foreign communications, but it inevitably sweeps up Americans' data. Hirono's question wasn't whether 702 is useful. Everyone in that room knows it is. Her question was whether this DOJ believes American civil liberties deserve stronger protections as that authority comes up for renewal. Bondi's response was classic institutional deflection. She praised the program, emphasized safety, referenced existing safeguards, and committed to working together. What she did not do was commit to any concrete reform. That ambiguity is important. In hearings like this, what officials refuse to say often matters more than what they do say. Then Hirono pivoted, and this is where the clash became explosive. She reminded Bondi of something Bondi herself said during her confirmation, that prosecutorial decisions should be independent. Then she placed that promise next to a very specific timeline. A U.S. attorney forced out, a presidential social media post asking, "What about Comey?" a new U.S. attorney appointed, and days later, an indictment of James Comey. This wasn't speculation, this was sequence. When Hirono asked Bondi whether she was the Pam referenced in the president's post, Bondi conceded that she likely was. That admission matters enormously, because in democratic systems, the appearance of political direction over prosecutions is almost as damaging as proof. Hirono's conclusion, that the president sees DOJ as his law firm, wasn't rhetorical flourish, it was an institutional diagnosis. From there, she moved to the Tom Homan bribery investigation. Again, notice the pattern. Hirono isn't jumping randomly between issues. She's showing consistency. Alleged misconduct involving a politically connected figure, video evidence, cash, and then the investigation quietly shut down. Bondi's response was to say the DOJ and FBI reviewed it and found no wrongdoing. But when Hirono pressed on who approved the closure, Bondi refused to answer directly. That silence is instructive. Accountability requires traceability. When decisions can't be traced, power becomes opaque. Bondi then attempted to derail the line of questioning by invoking protests and Antifa, a tactic increasingly common in these hearings. It's a move designed to shift scrutiny from institutional decisions to personal insinuations. Hirono did not take the bait. She brought it back to the facts: $50,000 in cash, a closed investigation, no explanation. Then came January 6th. This may have been the most revealing portion of the exchange. Hirono pointed out that hundreds of people were convicted for their actions on January 6th, only to be later pardoned by President Trump. And then she raised something even more alarming, reports that DOJ officials were discussing a compensation fund for January 6th defendants, likened to the 9/11 Victims Fund. That comparison is staggering. One group attacked the seat of democratic government, the other was victimized by terrorism. Bondi denied personal involvement, but again declined to state whether such a fund would be appropriate. That hesitation matters. In moments like this, neutrality becomes a form of endorsement. Hirono then widened the lens to antitrust enforcement, another area where DOJ independence is critical. She described how career staff blocked a tech merger only for political appointees to reverse course after lobbying meetings. She connected that pattern to the Ticketmaster case, where the same lobbyists appeared again. Bondi's refusal to discuss ongoing matters is legally understandable, but politically revealing. What Hirono was exposing wasn't a single decision, it was a system where access and influence appear to override professional judgment. The final phase of Hirono's questioning may have been the most consequential. She addressed the mass firing and departure of career prosecutors, people with decades of experience, many of whom worked on Trump-related or January 6th cases. Bondi refused to discuss personnel matters, but defended the purge by framing it as removing uncommitted workers and replacing them with loyal prosecutors. That framing is dangerous. Democratic justice systems depend on independence, not loyalty. Prosecutors are not supposed to serve a president. They are supposed to serve the law. Hirono's closing statement put all of this into one stark sentence. The Department of Justice has become the Department of Revenge and Corruption. That's not a throwaway line. It's an allegation that history will judge. And then came the response. When Senator Kennedy accused Hirono of hypocrisy and claimed the two-tier system was over, he confirmed the very concern she raised. Because justice is not supposed to swing back and forth depending on who wins elections. That's not accountability, that's retribution. This hearing wasn't about personalities. It was about precedent, about whether the DOJ remains an institution governed by law or becomes an instrument of political power. And that's why moments like this matter far beyond the room. If you want analysis that explains not just what was said, but what it reveals about power, accountability, and democracy, subscribe to Democratic Lens. Every sitting, every hearing, through a democratic lens.